On April 7th, Donald Trump issued the most egregious threat in which he said about Iran, an entire civilization will die tonight, never to come alive again. He gave a 12-hour ultimatum to the people of Iran, basically saying capitulate, surrender, or I will annihilate you and your entire civilization. It was not an intent to commit war crime or genocide. This was a war crime. The very articulation of this was a war crime, terrorizing 93 million Iranians and terrorizing the world. But how did everyday people around the world look at this, absorb this, read this, process this? How? What was the view thousands and thousands of miles away from America? How did people react? Two examples came across my vision in the form of two pieces of writing by young women. Two young women, age about 21, from Karachi, Pakistan, expressed their thoughts in writing. And I would like to read both those pieces of writing because they really took my breath away and really made me understand the impact of this on human beings outside of America who are looking in, who are looking at us, looking at the man we put into power for the second time, and what was coming out of his mouth. I think it's really important for us Americans to hear what people were thinking in that moment, especially the generation below us, young people, how they're perceiving the world that we have shaped and that we are allowing a man we elected to threaten an entire civilization. Yeah, we bear responsibility. As American citizens, we bear responsibility. And I think these young women, whether they knew it or not, unbeknownst to them, they're actually speaking to us. They're actually having a conversation, a little bit with themselves, but a lot with us, telling us exactly what they thought about that April 7th post by Donald Trump. The language of ruin is the first piece that I will read for you. And the author of this piece is Sana Mahmood Sajwani. The language of ruin. He speaks in headlines but underneath them, something colder is building. Not a plan, but a psychology where consequence is softened until it no longer feels like consequence. A civilization becomes a phrase becomes a stage, and on that stage, humanity is rearranged into symbols that no longer resist being moved. What kind of mind can hold destruction without interruption? Not with rage. Rage is still human, but with clarity so sharp, it cuts empathy out before it can form. There is a familiar pattern here, the inflation of the self until it casts a shadow larger than nations, until other lives begin to feel like scenery rather than breathing weight. This is how distance is manufactured, not with silence, but with volume, not with absence, but with overwhelming certainty that leaves no room for doubt to survive. The bridges are named, the plants are named, as if naming makes erasure easier to justify, as if language can sanitize what conscience would otherwise resist. And in that space between declaration and outcome, something fractures. Accountability dissolves into inevitability, and responsibility is replaced by performance. Even faith appears as a borrowed language here, not as reflection, but as decoration placed on top of rupture, a final attempt to make certainty feel sacred instead of unstable. What remains psychologically is not power itself, but the construction of a self so enlarged it no longer meets resistance from the reality of others. And that is the most dangerous architecture, not the threat of destruction, but the quiet rewriting of perception, where destruction no longer requires recognition of what it destroys. Because once empathy is distant enough, even catastrophe can begin to sound like order. Sana Mahmood Sajwani. The immediate thought I had reading this was that famous line, the banality of evil. The second piece is entitled April 7th by Zara Kayumi. I've been thinking about why that tweet didn't shake me. A whole civilization will die tonight, and I think the honest answer is that I've stopped expecting words like that to mean anything anymore. My feed that night was, I don't even know. Someone doing their makeup with an audio that was trending, a recipe, a dog doing something, and then a video I won't describe from somewhere I couldn't immediately place, with a caption in a language I had to translate. Then back to the girl with the blush and the ring light, explaining her routine in this soft, unbothered voice. I watched all of it. I kept scrolling. There's something that happens when you see enough. I don't think it's cruelty. I think it's just your nervous system doing what it has to do to get you through the day. At some point, the brain stops treating a video of a bombed civilian as categorically different from a video of someone's morning routine. It all becomes content. It all becomes the same flat rectangle on the same glowing screen, and your thumb does the same motion regardless. What scares me about April 7th isn't that a civilization may have been dying somewhere. It's that I read that sentence, felt a small dull ache, not grief, just the ghost of what grief used to feel like, and then went to make coffee. I used to cry at the news. I remember that version of me. She felt too much all the time. Now I feel not enough, and I'm not sure which one was healthier. Maybe neither. Maybe there's some middle place I've never actually lived in. What no one tells you about numbness is that it doesn't feel like absence. It feels completely normal. It feels like you're fine. You're not in pain. You're not overwhelmed. You're just moving through the day, making tea, texting back, scrolling. And underneath that, very quietly, is happening the slow erosion of whatever it was that used to make you human in the way you wanted to be. I didn't cry on April 7th. I didn't pray or call anyone or sit with it. I moisturized and went to sleep. I would really like to thank both Sana and Zara for allowing me to read both their writings on my video. And I'd like to thank them for penning what their thoughts were when Donald Trump threatened to erase civilization in Iran.